Hello, hello, hello. This is TamikaSeaton, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit, where we help small, startup, and stagnant nonprofits grow through fundraising strategies, strategic planning, and so much more. Guys, today you are in for a treat. I have my special guest, Sandystilwell. She's the owner and operator of Stilwell Enterprises. She will share all of her secrets about how she became a serial entrepreneur and all things philanthropy, right?
Right.
So, before we get started, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my podcast. Hodges University with a campus in Fort Myers. Stay near, go far. They change lives for the better. Trinity Life Foundation, Naples, helping at-risk youth in Collier County through their enrichment program. AVID, that stands for the Associations of Haitians Living Abroad. They just opened a great support center right here in the beautiful Fort Myers, where they help people with immigration, utility, rental assistance, and so much more. Last but not least, Vax Truth. They just received a grant from the CDC where they raise awareness about COVID-19 and vaccine resources in the Black and Brown communities. So, like I said, without further ado, Sandystilwell.
Thank you.
How are you doing, Sandy?
Doing well, thank you.
This interview was long overdue. I know I reconnected with you last year through the Gulf Coast Business Bank event. And I said, you have to come on my podcast. And you said, no, wait, I'm really busy. So I finally was able to get you here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it because I know you have so many businesses. You're also rebuilding because a lot of your businesses sustained damage during Hurricane Ian. But you took the time out of your busy schedule to come here and bless us with your presence. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So you're Florida grown, right? You graduated from Cypress Lake High School, right?
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, because I know when we met last year, you mentioned that you've never worked for anyone a day in your life, and you've always been an entrepreneur. So tell us about that, and we'll get into philanthropy.
Okay, well, great. Well, I was raised here since the time I was 2. We moved from Chicago, and and my grandparents were entrepreneurs, and my parents were entrepreneurs.
Oh.
And so it kind of was in our blood.
Oh.
And so I did work for my uncle when I was 10 years old.
Oh, my.
He owned a little diner and was shorthanded a dishwasher. And I said, I can help you. I just adored my Uncle Kelly. And so I had a job working with him, and he always swore that I broke more dishes than I actually washed.
I bet you that's not true.
He liked to pick on me a lot. But anyway, but I did honestly see how hard they worked, and I promised myself I would never be in the restaurant business because that just took too much out of anyone's life. And sure enough, here it is. How
many restaurants? You have a ton of them.
Right now, there was 6 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm just sold one.
Okay.
And I love the restaurant business. It's actually service oriented, and I think that's really my love is in hospitality, and with the hotel business the same way. So it's been great. I love it. So my first business that I own on my own was when I was 17.
Wow.
And so you're never too young. I always encourage young people to fulfill your dream.
So tell us about your first business at 17. And how could someone get started? Because I know oftentimes we are our own worst enemy. We tell ourselves what we can't do, and it's really not true.
That's absolutely right. And what happened was at church, I met in a Bible study, a couple, and he was the president of a bank. Oh. And he was saying that he had to fire his cleaning service because they caught someone stealing something. And I thought, I think I could do that.
Oh, wow.
So I started a cleaning service, and I cleaned their bank. It's right in the corner of College Parkway and 41.
Okay.
It's Wells Fargo now.
Oh, wow.
And so then I hired a bunch of youth from the youth group at church.
Wow.
And we started doing that, and then it turned into a whole chain of First Federal Savings and Loan Associations that we did the cleaning for, and then I did the airport control tower, and it started into car dealerships. And then I sold the business because ultimately that was not my goal, is to own a cleaning service, but it got me to where I needed to be.
Wow.
And I really found that I liked that. So I sold that business, and then I went into the hotel business where I owned my first little in.
Wow.
And so I was 21 when I got into my first inn.
Oh my gosh.
I built a house at 19, though.
Oh my gosh.
So, but the building of the house at 19 also included my mom and dad loaning me the money for the lot, and then I paid them back. But so I have to give credit to my parents. That they instilled hard work ethic in me, and they gave me that first loan, which is
That's
always
wonderful.
important,
That's wonderful. I like that your first business was basically cleaning a bank. I like that. You started with money. I like that. So what was it? Was it, I know you had the support of your family. I know you come from a family of entrepreneurs, but you still have to have something in you to believe in yourself, to not be afraid to take that leap of faith and do that. What did you have what was your secret sauce?
I just always believed that if you treat people the way that you want to be treated, that it's going to go very well, and you provide a service that's needed.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Then you meet that need, and that's why I have 5 restaurants on Captiva. Each one is a different concept, and there was no Mexican restaurant, so now I had a Mexican restaurant. So I've kind of looked, even my little stores that I would have, if somebody didn't sell books, then I sold books. So that way people didn't have to leave the island. So that's been the method to my madness, is that. And I never really wanted to create, a huge chain and take it nationwide or anything. I always wanted to keep it just within my ability. I am considering making one of mine a chain now. Oh, wow. But that is yet to be seen how that will work out. I'm just putting that out there. I'm trying.
Put it in the universe. Put it in the universe, because what I've learned is I became an entrepreneur, I guess, a little bit later in life. I started off, I had a career. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I've been in Southwest Florida for 19 years. I lived in Naples for 15 and the rest in Fort Myers. And, I was always taught, like everyone else in this country, go to college and get a good job. So that's all I was focused on, in getting a good job. And then I found myself, it was a challenge for anyone to hire me, because they would look at my resume and say, I can't pay you enough, or could you really take orders for me, because you're used to being in executive leadership roles. And I said, Tamika, maybe this is the time to take a leap of faith and bet on yourself this time, because I go into other people's businesses and companies and turn it around, make it better, raise more money, and, working long hours, 6-hour days. And I said, this time, let me do it for myself. So I'm at a point in my life where I've been taking the leap of faith, even when the money wasn't there. And I asked God for it, and then the money just shows up somehow. So someone who is thinking about entrepreneurship, even if they're working, and maybe they just start off with a side hustle, what advice can you give them to get started if they don't have the money, they don't have the support? How should they get started?
Well, I think you have to come up with a concept, first of all, what you want to do, and then build a business plan. And there are so many tools out there to help build a business plan. And then pitch the idea to some of your friends and see if it's something that they would think it's a good idea. Because, when you decide to give up a perfectly good paying job and then launch yourself out there, you need to have some resources available to you, and really a good backup plan, because, not every business is successful.
Right.
And there have been businesses that I have started that I've shut down too. So it's not like I'm hitting home run every time.
Okay.
That you have to be prepared that it might not go exactly the way you want it to go. But when you really put the work into it and you do your homework ahead of time and you have your resources, that's really the key. And a lot of people come to me for advice, and I kind of help them through some of that, and I'm happy to do that, because I'd rather see them seek advice. And there are so many resources. The Small Business Development Center, there's a lot of different places. And for funding, it depends upon but if there's a nonprofit type, there's actually groups of people that help fund people to start a new business too. And it's really helpful in that way.
Good to know. So as you continue, or as you were on this journey of entrepreneurship, at what point did you take a look at, or how did you get involved in philanthropy? And for those of you, philanthropy philanthropy is basically giving back to whether it's a nonprofit or just helping with some social cause that impacts the lives positively of someone who's less fortunate.
Well, it was actually through with my children. I have my 2 sons, and they were in school. So much of what I did was in my business, running my business, and being mom, and then doing all the, church things and little leagues and all the stuff with boys you would do. And so I kind of gotten involved with some of the fundraising things as a part of their school, etc. And then I got involved with Junior League in Fort Myers, and they really did train me a lot on how to be a good committee member, how to be really organized in the nonprofits. And so one of our projects was to start the Ronald McDonald House.
Really?
Yeah, so I helped start the Ronald McDonald House, was one of their first presidents of the whole organization. But we, as a Junior League, we sponsored the kitchen. And so we did that, and we already just had, I think it was our 25th anniversary. That was like 5 years ago or so.
Wow.
And we've already just did the expansion to the Ronald McDonald House. So Jim Nathan, who was the head of Olive Lee Health, asked me to co-chair it with him and raise the money. By the time we had the party, we already had the money raised. Which
of course. If Sandy's involved, you're going to always exceed your goal.
Well, thank you. And Jim Nathan doesn't.
Yeah, he's really good too.
Package.
Yes, he does. Yes.
When he calls, you don't say no. He's just been a wonderful friend over the years. And so what I have found is that I really enjoy also being in my business. I love, but everybody that around me is pretty much working for me, and there are subcontractors and different people, and I kind of like to be able to have that other side of my life, and I can help make other people do very well, make impacts in their lives. I kind of really just don't want my only goal in life to make money, but it's to make change and be a positive impact, and hopefully I'll be remembered for more than just owning some restaurants. But the restaurants has allowed me, though, whether the soup kitchen needed food for their soup kitchen event, I could bring food. And many times we would do events, and rather than just keep on going back to the same people, they just ask them for like 100 pieces of one hors d'oeuvre. Okay. If you had enough different restaurants, we can share the wealth, as far as you don't need
title,
I like that. And then, and you put their sign, this restaurant did whatever, and they can put on an event with a lot of things that don't cost a lot of money. Because that's very hard when you're putting on an event. The overhead of that event is a lot for a nonprofit. And so make enough connections and don't really ask them too often,
So what is too often and what is not too often to ask a business when you're looking for whether it's an auction item or food or anything?
Well, especially since, when COVID came, everybody was devastated. So a lot of the things shut down at that point. And then since the hurricane, we postponed a lot of our events that we were doing in a number of charities I'm involved with, just because we wanted to be sensitive to the business owners. We've all been impacted by this hurricane in various different degrees, and you just don't want to overask. But at the same time, some businesses are alive, well, and thriving, and they want to get their word out. So our approach is a very soft one, and that helps a lot. But I would say, whether it be, I've gotten involved with Pace Center for Girls, been a huge supporter of that. I was the chairman of their board, and I'm on their national board of directors now. So we're really trying to take that name for Pace Center for Girls nationwide. We're in Georgia now, in South Carolina, and we're working our way throughout. And we're looking for corporate investors that are big corporations that will help us take this model that's so successful in Florida and take it nationwide. So that approach would be something more than going to like a local restaurant. Now, for our local events, yes, we need sponsorships and banks and so on. So I think it's identifying the people and find their focus. For me, I've had my greatest success in just getting to know people, finding out what their passions are, and then helping them filter to something that is the same passion.
Yes.
So much is important in that way. But for me, if I have somebody coming to me and they want me to sponsor an event, and let's say it's a cash sponsorship. Let's say it's a $5,000 sponsorship to sponsor their ball, whatever. And, well, I want to look at it as a business person.
Right.
What kind of marketing value am I going to get back? So you need to come up with a good package, of course, and then, but then thank afterwards.
Yes.
And don't stop thanking. Develop and nurture that relationship with that donor, because if all you do is collect the money, you put their logo out there, you've said your thank yous, and it's over with, that I don't think is good enough. And I really think that you need to have a presence on their website for maybe a whole year when you're starting to pre-announce the next year's ball.
Okay.
Continue with the previous year's. This was the previous year's sponsor.
I like that. I've never seen that before.
It's not done very often. And then this is the previous year, and we would love to have your name logo here. And then at some point, you do drop off the ones that were the previous year. But you start right. So you have like a full year of thank yous. And then in your on your website, in some of your newsletters, it's just... You just can never say thank you.
Right. What's one unique thing a nonprofit has done to thank you for, whether it was a in-kind or a cash donation, that really wowed you?
Do you know, I've had many that were just really great, but sometimes I've had it where during the time of COVID, or if there was some after Hurricane Charlie, for instance, they threw me in as a sponsor, and I didn't even give cash. They went ahead and said, thank you for your past years. Here, thank you for that. And then, you know what? They had me again. They hooked me in, and I had them, really high on the list.
Very good.
That was really, but verbally at the event is always a great thing, having posters at the event. Just wherever you can get their name out there, because that's what their job is to get their product out.
Right. And I always wonder, do the businesses actually see a return on their investment?
I think that there's really no way of
really knowing
100% knowing if you had a unique click through on a website that you could track it that way, and the people that marketing, they know how exactly to do all that, and I've used that tool, but that wouldn't be the only thing that you could gauge it on. I think you get your name out there. When I go and buy jewelry, where I go for jewelry is people that have been good to the community.
Interesting.
When I want to go out to eat to a privately owned restaurant, I really do think, who is good to the community, and who do I want to support? I do believe that people, that they come out to Captiva, to my restaurants, and a lot of them, they're my nonprofit friends, and they said, well, okay, they're aunts in town or whatever, let's drive out to the island, I'll show them around a little bit, and it's nice. It does pay off, but it's getting your name out there.
Interesting. Very interesting. So what would people, and I'm so happy you're here today, because oftentimes I invite nonprofits to interview them, but from a donor perspective, what would nonprofits be surprised to know about donors from your perspective that maybe they don't consider?
Well, I don't know that they haven't considered it or not, but I really, when I'm thinking about one organization over another, the one that has the greatest impact, and the best value for your dollar. And it has to kind of go in line with what I'm interested in doing things, because I can't support everything.
I know, right?
I have to, sometimes when the United Way used to come and ask me for donations, I'm thinking, I am kind of like my own United Way. I'm just giving gift certificates out to everybody. And then I decided, no, I'm gonna focus just a little bit more. I support the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools through their Golden Apple program, and I do things. I try to focus and try to stay within very affordable and focused areas on my part. But what I do look for is how frugal they are as an organization, and the results. For instance, Pay Center for Girls, the percentages are in the high 90s that these girls do not get in trouble again once they've been in that program and get them back on track. And some people used to think that it was just all juvenile justice girls. That's not the case. Sometimes the girls just get a little off track. Maybe they need to get away from boys for just a little bit and then focus, get their grades back on, and get a little counseling component, which is a huge part. So that's really helpful. I've greatly am part of the Habitat for Humanity. I love that. We're getting close to time. Okay, good. It went by so.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm usually monitoring it, but I'm just learning so much from you. So
but I can continue on about Habitat if you want me to. But I think
we'll do 5 more minutes because then
Okay, but I greatly support Habitat for Humanity because of how it changes not only the life of the person living in that home, but it's their future generations. Because once you impact a family of home ownership, they don't have to worry about paying rent anymore. And I just was at a Women's Build event, and I've worked and I've helped physically build houses. I sponsor houses every year.
Oh, wow.
I've sponsored now, I think it's been 4 houses that I've sponsored. But to hammer nails side by side, and most of them are women, single women, that are moving into these homes. Now, we're not saying that men don't qualify. It's just that oftentimes the greatest need is in the single women, and it's really remarkable because they maybe came out of a substandard, apartment paying $2,000 a month, $1,500 to $2,000 a month, and half of their pay is going to rent. And how do they pay the bills? How do they stay on top of things when it's like that? And so this really gets, it's definitely, it jerks at my heartstrings, is all I can say. That's something that I'll always be a part of as a donor, and maybe not always on their board. But and I'm actually sponsoring along with Lisbeth Benequisto. We're doing a Women's Build team together. And it's going to be Team Benequisto Youngquist.
I say that 3 times. That is amazing. So before we wrap up, I noticed that your eyes just light up when you talk about getting involved and engaging and actually doing some physical work with the nonprofit, not just a thank you letter, or if any of them do like a thank you video or a personal phone call. So it sounds like getting that donor, if they're interested, they have to be interested, involved in that organization from a volunteer perspective. It seems as though that really resonates with you.
It really does. It so helps. It really does.
And it brings you closer to the mission because you could see the impact that your investment in that organization is actually doing, right? It's not just in the annual report or their newsletter. You're actually seeing it, tasting it, and smelling it. Yes. And maybe even in some cases, you get to interact with some of the program participants as well.
It's so true. And then I love to see collaborations when they're not so thinking about themselves, but they can work together with other people.
I like that.
It really is great because then you're not doing duplication of services. You're actually integrating everything together.
I like that.
And the United Way I've become very involved with now because I realize that I am not really my own United Way. And
yes, you are, Sandy.
But they really do such a great job. So I've become a supporter of them too because they really vet out the organizations, make sure that money is going to be spent well, follow up to be sure it was spent well. That's important too.
They do that very well because when I was executive director of a particular organization, we were one of the recipients of United Way dollars, and once a year, I call it the Dog and Pony Show, I would have to give this presentation, and they had a list of questions to address in your presentation, and they toured the facility, and I'm telling you, it was a lot, but it actually kept me organized and made me realize, like, wow, they really do their due diligence. So you're right. So before we wrap up, I know we said we're going to wrap up, that we'll have to do another podcast, but can you tell our audience how they can reach you if they're interested in patronizing one of your restaurants, one of your businesses, not just for money, just so whatever whatever information you liked, are you comfortable with giving out? Maybe it's a website or
Yes, you can get a hold of me. It's StilwellEnterprisesLLC.com is just my corporate name. Stilwell has one L in the middle, two at the end. But otherwise, through the Captiva Island Inn website is another way to get a hold of me, and I will answer your email, I promise.
Yeah, she does. She really does. When I first met her, I see this beautiful woman, and I reached out to her, and she actually responded to me. So that's good to know that you are very personable, you're down to earth, and you're reachable. So thank you. So guys, you heard it here first. Today, we kind of stepped outside the box. We brought in a philanthropist and a serial entrepreneur right here in the community who cares about the community, who's from the community. I hope there was something that you could take away from this interview. So stay tuned for more of our episodes.